Hello, my name is Nandi Soccer and I'm here to talk about Dragon Age lore. Hello everyone, this week we continue the topic of religions of Thedas and we talk about the Tevinter Imperium's belief across the ages. In the northern parts of Thedas lays the Tevinter Imperium. The main religion for so long before the rise of Andraste was the worship of the old gods. 7 dragon deities worshipped by humans. When the influence of the Imperium spanned across Thedas, so did their worship of these old gods. Many elves were enslaved and forced to abandon their gods and worship the dragons of old. Nothing was able to stop the spread of this belief except for 2 factors. The blight, which was blamed on the old gods that awakened as blighted archdemons, and the rise of the Chantry, which taught that the old gods were in fact rival spirits that challenged the Maker himself. The legendary Thalcion was the first dreamer. Dreamers were mages who claimed to have vision of the realm of the gods. And to prove so, the dreamers had to demonstrate very powerful spells. Thalcion communicated with the old god Dumat and learned the art of blood magic from the old god. Eventually, the Imperium united under the dreamer Darius, the first Archon, and by this time the worship of the old god was the norm. Darius managed to form the magisterium that consisted of the priests of the 7 gods and naming Thalcion the first dreamer as an honorary Archon. Hundreds of years passed by and the religion grew stronger. Many temples were erected for the worship of the old dragon gods. It peaked right before the first blight, when it is said that Dumat himself rose as a corrupted archdemon. The Chantry teaches that the Darkspawn was responsible for raising the archdemon, but some old lore teaches otherwise. They say that Dumat himself created the Darkspawn and set them loose on the surface world.
Did the others never return from the Black City? There is no record even of our names. We are vilified by legend. They spit on our deeds and claim we brought darkness into the world. We discovered the darkness. We claimed it as our own. Let it permeate our being. If the others have not returned, they are lost. I am alone in my glory.
Either way, this was the first nail in the coffin of the old gods' worship. By the end of the second blight, only a handful of isolated areas was still set in their ways, while the rest of Thedas was following the Chantry teachings. Eventually, all the temples were converted to mage circles. These 7 old gods' names were Andoril, dragon of slaves, Dumat, dragon of silence, Lusaken, dragon of night, Razikael, dragon of mystery, Thoth, dragon of fire, Urthermiel, dragon of beauty, and Zazakiel, dragon of freedom. 10 years after the death of Andraste by Hisarion's blade, the Archon declared that he heard the Maker's voice when he put Andraste to his sword. He named himself a disciple of Andraste and said that the Maker is the one true God and that Andrastianism is the official religion of Tevinter. The priests of the old gods had only 2 choices: convert or die. This resulted in a huge clash within Tevinter. The Altus and Leighton mages refused completely to convert to a religion that belittles magic. On the other hand, the common people of the Soporati or the non-mages supported Hisarion and converted to the new religion to cast down their magisters. This era of bloodshed and overthrowing magisters was known as the Transfiguration. After the death of all the high priests of the old god, Hisarion reconstructed the temple of Dumat, and all the other temples were converted into a safe area of study and knowledge for the mages. After all, according to the Maker, magic exists to serve man, so the mages had to be prepared for a lifetime full of public service. For the first time in Tevinter history, the Soporati was able to hold seats of power within the Imperium. But this gradually shifted as many of the Altus who survived the Transfiguration converted to Andrastianity and joined the priesthood. Years and years of correlating mages with authority restored the mages to the position of power in the Chantry within few generations. 110 years later, Emperor Cordelius Draken appointed Divine Justinian I the head of the Chantry, and without any consideration of the imperial Chantry, the Tevinter people were upset, as they were the true founders of the Chantry, while Orlais was still a handful of tribes. Still, Tevinter tried to appease the Orlesians and moved the rank of Archon to a ceremonial one, while the Grand Clerics were really in charge. The Tevinter clergy tried over and over for a recognition from the Orlesian Chantry, and it was always met by refusal, as the Imperial Chantry admitted men into priesthood. At this time, the Orlesian Chantry was unaware that the Imperium also admitted mages within the ranks. After the Third Blight, the Orlesian Chantry started claiming that it was actually Tevinter mages who brought the Blight upon the world. This was done as a political tactic against Tevinter gaining ground in the Free Marches. This fear-mongering was the start of all the anti-Tevinter and anti-mages movement throughout the history. Eventually, magic exists to serve man and not to rule over him was the last straw, given that Tevinter interpreted it as magic should not be used to control minds. So when the Orlesian Chantry asked its imperial sister to revert back to the original chant, Tevinter refused and called out what they named the corruption in the Orlesian Chantry. As a result, Divine Joyous II declared that Tevinter clergy are heretics, and as a reply, Tevinter responded by naming Grand Cleric Valhale, who was also a very powerful mage, the divine of the Tevinter Chantry. Today's Imperial Chantry's teachings are basically the same as the Orlesian, except for the parts that are against magic. Men are also prevalent in the Chantry. Both men and women can serve and become clerics in the Tevinter clergy, although men are prominent appearance, especially in the higher ranks. All the high-ranking mages belong to one of the circles, as it is impossible for a mage to reach such rank without belonging to one. It is very rare for a Soporati to reach a high rank in the Chantry. The anniversary of the death of Archon Hessarian is a widespread holiday across Tevinter, as well as the Feast of Visitation, in which the appearance of Andraste in the dreams of the people is highly celebrated. Again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had as much fun as I had when I was researching this topic. Next week's video is going to be about the non-human beliefs in Thedas, which are the elves, dwarves, and the Qunari, or the lack of. So stay tuned, and if you like the channel, please subscribe so you wouldn't miss any of the videos. And again, thank you so much. See you next week.